and Fletcher, and they believe that they can find a way to compete in one of the best divisions in all of Major League Baseball in the American League West. So if I'm an Angel fan, I would be giving thanks this week that Ohtani is not moving out this winter. On the contrary, the idea clearly from the Angels' perspective is we're going to do the best we can to compete in what is Ohtani's final year before free agency. They hope that they get another prime year of Mike Trout and make another go at this thing and try to win or at least get back to the playoffs for what would be the first time since 2014.
JP, talk a little bit more about Shohei and what Perry did, going back to that, saying, okay, we're not trading him this offseason, and how much is that tied in with the possibility of the new ownership kind of set up out there?
You know, Bill, it's an excellent question, and I think a really important point, because when you consider what's the upside in trading Shohei now as opposed to reevaluating it midseason, and the case to keep him now goes something like this. If you're going to sell the Los Angeles Angels and you have one of the most marketable stars in the sports universe on your roster, quite simply, why would you trade your most valuable asset? And I think that is the calculus they've made right now, that this franchise is more valuable with him than without him, both from a standpoint of what the value is to an owner and also all of the different sponsorship, marketing, global television rights deals that you can make when you have a marketable star of Shohei Ohtani's caliber. Why give that up when you have networks that want to air your games all the time because you have one of the most valuable players in the world? So I think you keep Shohei on the roster. If the season does not go the way that you expect, you can probably still get a very good price for Shohei Ohtani in July at the deadline. So move it forward. The cost benefit comes down decidedly on the side of keep him now, and then if you have to reevaluate in July, you do it. But you look at this team and say there's a decent and reasonable script that says they're a very competitive and compelling team in the first half. No need to make that trade right now.
Well, you know, a couple other things on this. I think that the convergence of positivity here with the Angels is hard to ignore, because the existing ownership group, I think, is trying to make the product as palatable and as appealing as possible. They're adding to the payroll. They're doing so not necessarily caring what the back ends of these deals are going to look like, because they want the best possible product on paper that they can assemble for the sale. That also happens to make them a very good team. So these two things are working in conjunction with one another, and I think there's better vibes around this club now than there have been for a long time based on the additions they've made. And Gio Urshela, I forgot to mention that. I'm glad you cleaned me up there, JP. They've really added, and what they gave up, they gave Janson, Junk, and Elvis Peguero a pretty good long look. Talented players, but not necessarily players that are going to help them win in 2023. At least that's Perry's thought. So they've put together Mike Trout and Mike Trout Jr. because it is impossible to deny the likeness.
I really, truly believe that.
Yeah, I believe it's the same guy. I mean, it's Mike Trout playing for the Red Sox, and it's Mike Trout playing for the Angels. Mike Trout and Hunter Renfroe have a facial likeness that is going to give us a lot of fun all year, I'm sure. You'll never see them at a party together, that's for sure.
No.
I mean, neither one of those guys are partiers to begin with, but that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, hey, real quickly, JP, before we run out of time here, what is the market like for Carlos Rodon? Because we've already talked about the most appealing free agent hitter that's out there, Rodon would be among the most appealing free agent starters.
He is, Matt, and I love the way you frame that, because we've talked this week about DeGrom and Verlander, and I think a lot of the same teams are in there on Carlos Rodon as well, following his very strong season with the San Francisco Giants. Teams like the Dodgers, the Rangers, the Mets as a fallback option if they don't get Jacob DeGrom or Verlander. I think the Mets are a really interesting team to watch right now, because I have a hard time believing that the Mets do not come away with one of Rodon, Verlander, DeGrom. When you look at their rotation right now, Chris Bassett is a free agent. Taijuan Walker is a free agent, and DeGrom is, of course, as well. They need help in that area. They really need to fortify their group of starting pitchers, in addition to some other pursuits and certainly trying to retain Brandon Nimmo and compete in a division that includes the last 2 National League champs. So the Mets have a lot of work ahead of them. I also think the Giants are going to keep that possibility open to bring back Rodon, depending on how things play out with Aaron Judge. So keep a very close eye on the Carlos Rodon market. He, in some ways, might be able to get a longer-term deal than either DeGrom or Verlander because he's younger. So stay tuned there on Rodon. A lot of the same teams we've heard on DeGrom and Verlander also in the market for Carlos Rodon.
Good stuff. And JP will be back with us in about 45 minutes with his daily check of the international baseball market as well, boning up on those language skills.
I want him to get into Loretta Stone.
He doesn't need Loretta Stone, Harold, whoever that might be. He's a multilingual. JP, thank you very much. Angels are interesting, man. I mean, this is as active as they've been in the free agent and trade market in the winter in a long time.
So the first thing I did is I looked up last year's standings, and I said, okay, 73 and 89. Now, I think they're in a better spot to make a jump. So getting out of the gate, I think, is imperative to start the season next year for the Angels. Because once you start in that 500 roll or maybe a couple games under, I think that 73 and 89 goes away. But if we're kind of hanging out in limbo, it's hard for me to think if you're going to be a playoff team, because the Astros are still good. Seattle's still good. If you're going to be a playoff team, I've got to push the 90 win mark, right? So at 73, 81 is 8 games up to get to 500. Now you got to do another 9 games. Are you a 17 game better? And I think it's hard for me to wrap my hands around that sometimes when I'm thinking about other teams. But with the wherewithal, the talent they have on that roster, you make a move here, you make a move there, they could make the jump easier than some of the other teams.
Totally agree. Plus 17 is doable for another reason in that they don't have to play the Astros 18 times. They don't have to play Seattle 18 times.
Isn't it still something like 12 or 14? It's not as balanced as I thought it was going to be when they jumped in there.
That's true.
But it's not the 19.
Right.
Correct.
Right, which is good. I will say this. They're not done because they have to address the fact that 5 of their 6 starters are left-handed. I mean, there's got to be another right-handed starter in there, if not more.
Now, if you've got 4 Sandy Koufaxes, I'm okay with it. But you don't.
Right.
So that's the idea right there. I'm not so much consumed with righty, lefty, even through a lineup. You know, you look at the Houston Astros, they were able to win it all. Sometimes you think they're a little bit right-handed. Now, they do have Tucker in there. They have Alvarez, and that's enough. But look at the damage Alvarez did off of who and when.
Yeah.
It was lefties coming in.
Didn't matter.
So, to me, if you have the right hitters in your lineup, it's okay to be a little bit one-sided. If you're looking at a group of guys that are kind of middle of the road, by all means, right, left, right, left, right, left, that would be a perfect scenario. But pitching staff, if you got the right dudes out on the bump, I don't care which hand they throw away.
I agree. Let's say good morning to Sierra Santos.
Good morning!
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving. What's the Thanksgiving holiday look like for you?
Oh, I'm heading back to the West Coast. I'm going back to Arizona.
Good for you.